I arrived at my son's wedding in Charleston, South Carolina on a humid June afternoon. The reception hall glittered with chandeliers and lilies. When I stepped to the desk and gave my name, the attendant frowned, scanning the list twice. "I'm sorry, ma'am. You're not on the guest list." Confused, I looked across the crowd until I spotted my son Michael, handsome in his navy suit. When I asked him what was happening, he rolled his eyes and muttered with contempt, "Did you really think you'd be invited?" I swallowed the ache, smiled faintly, and told him I understood. Then I turned and walked away. But as the ceremony began, his phone buzzed again and again, my name flashing across the screen. My name is Eleanor. I am 68 years old. That day I realized I had raised a stranger. For decades I had poured myself into that boy. I gave birth to him when I was barely 20 after his father abandoned us. I worked nights at the hospital cafeteria, mornings cleaning offices, all so Michael could attend the best schools Charleston had to offer. Every piano lesson, every sports trip, every book he carried, those were my sacrifices. And when he graduated with a civil engineering degree, I wept with pride, thinking all the hardship had been worth it. I never imagined the same son I carried through hunger and exhaustion would cast me aside like a burden. But his fiancée, Lauren, had been the architect of it all. From the moment she entered his life, she whispered poison. "Your mother is too involved. A woman her age should have her own life." Michael nodded along a puppet in her hands. The visits dwindled. The calls turned cold. Excuses piled up like bricks between us. The first humiliation came at my own dinner table. Lauren sniffed at the roast I'd prepared and said, "Too dry." I can't imagine how Michael grew up eating this. I froze, waiting for my son to defend me. He just kept eating. Then came the sly remarks. "Oh, Eleanor, don't you think that blouse is too young for you? Or when I drop by without calling? You should really give us space. We're planning our future." And Michael always nodded. The cruelest moment came with their engagement. They held a party at Michael's townhouse. I thought it was just a family dinner. Instead, I walked into a room full of champagne flutes and Lauren's parents clapping as she flashed a diamond ring. "Surprise," they all shouted. I stood there the last to know. I forced a smile and raised my glass when they announced the engagement. "Congratulations," I said, my voice steady. But inside, something cracked. That night, Michael spoke with a tone I hardly recognized, cool, distant, rehearsed. "Mom, Lauren, and I want the wedding to be intimate, just close family." I nodded, believing with all my heart that I belonged in that circle. How naive I was. The following weeks turned into an ordeal. Lauren controlled every detail, and each time I asked about the ceremony, she brushed me aside. "We're still deciding," she would say with a polite but empty smile. "We'll let you know." But they never let me know anything. 3 days before the wedding, I called Michael to ask what time I should arrive. Silence filled the line before he finally spoke. "Mom." Lauren and I decided it'll just be immediate family. A chill cut through me. "But Michael, I am your mother." "I know," he said flatly. "But Lauren feels you don't really fit the image we want." Did not fit their image. The words carved deep. I had sacrificed everything, my youth, my health, my own dreams, yet suddenly I was reduced to an inconvenience, an embarrassment. Still, I decided to go. On the morning of the wedding, I put on the pale lavender dress I had bought months earlier with this day in mind. I pinned my hair, clasped my late husband's silver locket at my throat, and took a cab across town. I told myself that once Michael saw me there, he would remember the nights I stayed up with him through fevers, the double shifts I worked so he could play Little League, the endless sacrifices no one else had made. I was wrong. At the reception hall, I gave my name to the woman at the desk. She scanned the list once, then again, her brows pinching. "I'm sorry, ma'am, you're not listed." "There must be a mistake," I insisted. "I'm Michael's mother." It was then I saw him approaching flawless in his tuxedo, a smile tugging his lips. "Mom, what are you doing here?" he asked, not in surprise but in irritation. "My name isn't on the list," I explained, "but it must be an error." I am your mother." He met my eyes cold as marble. "It's not a mistake, Mom. I told you it's for close family only, but I am your family," I pleaded. He sighed, rolling his eyes. "Did you really think you'd be invited after everything you've done?" The words landed like a blow I may never recover from. "Everything I've done, Michael, I gave you." "Everything," I whispered, my throat tight. "Exactly," he said with contempt. "Always giving, always smothering, always meddling in my life." "Lauren is right. You never knew your place." At that moment, Lauren appeared radiant in her ivory gown. Her smile faltered the instant she saw me. "What is she doing here?" she demanded, as though I were a trespasser. "She's just leaving." Michael replied, his eyes fixed elsewhere. "Right, Mom. I could have begged. I could have wept. I could have caused a scene." Instead, I smiled. A calm, serene smile that unsettled them both. "I understand perfectly," I said. "Have a beautiful wedding." And I turned away. As I walked toward the exit, I slipped my phone from my purse and dialed a familiar number. "Samuel," said when he answered. "I think it's time to proceed with the plan we discussed." Samuel had been my attorney for over 2 decades, the only man who knew the truth of my affairs. "Are you certain, Eleanor?" he asked, his voice low, cautious. "Once this is set in motion, there's no reversing it. I'm completely certain," I replied, sliding into the back seat of a waiting cab. Michael just made it clear I mean nothing to him. It's time he learns what he truly stands to lose. As the taxi pulled away from the venue, my phone lit with messages. Not from Michael, from Lauren. "How dare you show up without an invitation? You embarrassed us. You have no dignity." "Michael is furious." Another pinged seconds later. "I hope you're happy. You ruined our special day." Ruined their special day. I almost laughed. That woman had no idea what ruin really looked like, but she was about to learn. Back at my home, I removed the lavender dress I had chosen so carefully, folded it across the bed, and exhaled for what felt like the first time in years. For too long, I had tiptoed around them, careful not to burden, careful not to intrude, always trying to be the perfect mother, the perfect mother-in-law. That night, I made the most important decision of my life. I was retiring, not from work, from motherhood. Michael had no idea about my true financial position. He grew up believing I scraped by on double shifts and side jobs. He never knew that my father, who had built an import-export business in Europe in the 1950s, had left me a vast inheritance a decade ago. Properties in Geneva, blue-chip shares bank accounts. Michael could never have imagined all of it existed quietly sitting where I'd left it. But I had lived as I always had, working double shifts, keeping the same modest bungalow, never changing the rhythm of my life. I wanted Michael to value me for who I was, not for what I owned. What a mistake that had been. That very night, while they drank and danced, I sat at my kitchen table with the laptop open. I moved funds signed, transfer authorizations, and placed legal instructions I had been drafting with Samuel for months. It was surgical work, trusts' irrevocable transfers, corporate proxies, things that would not rattle the air immediately, but would change everything once they matured and the paperwork cleared. 3 days after the wedding, Michael called, not with remorse, but with errands. "Mom," he said, casual as rain, "we're in Cancun. Can you water the plants and pick up the mail? And Lauren mentioned maybe tidy the place, we'll have people over when we get back." His voice assumed the old entitlement, as if nothing had happened. I answered simply, "I can't." "What do you mean you can't?" he asked, surprised. "We need someone. It'll be 5 minutes." "I'm busy," I said. "Find someone else." Then I hung up. An hour later, Lauren phoned, shrill and furious. "What's wrong with you, Eleanor? Are you crazy after the scene at our wedding?" I didn't make a scene. I replied, calm as the tide. "I went to congratulate my son." "Your son doesn't want you there," she shrieked. "Get it through your head. You are a burden. After all those years, after every sacrifice, I was a burden. You're right," I told her. "I am a burden." "What do you mean by that?" she demanded. "I'm retiring," I said. "You mean you won't help?" "You mean no," I said. "I mean, I'm stepping away." Michael no longer has a mother who will be defined by his convenience. I turned the phone off and felt a lightness I hadn't known in decades. The next morning, I hired movers. My most precious things were packed. The rest I donated. I sold the bungalow not because I couldn't keep it, but because I wanted the freedom to decide deliberately what came next. I checked into a 5-star hotel downtown booked for a month because Samuel and I needed time to finish the work without interruptions. He arrived the following afternoon, briefcase in hand, leafing through the agreements I'd signed. "Eleanor," he said, eyebrows low, "are you absolutely sure about this? These transfers, the foundation endowment, the condition clauses, once they're registered, reversing them will be almost impossible. I've been sure since the moment Michael looked at me with contempt at the entrance of that hall. I told Samuel. That boy thinks I'm a poor, pitiful old woman who depends on him. It's time he learned the truth." The documents Samuel carried were not ordinary papers. They included property deeds, bank statements, and something Michael had never seen the title to the very townhouse he lived in. The place he thought he had purchased with his mortgage had actually been secured by me. I had provided the down payment, co-signed the loan, and for years had quietly covered the bulk of his payments so that he could maintain his lifestyle without realizing who kept the lights on. But that was only the beginning. The firm where Michael worked as a civil engineer was not free of my shadow either. Its owner, Richard Harrison, had once been my father's business partner in Europe. When Michael graduated, I had approached Harrison asking him to give my son a chance. Harrison agreed, but he never sugarcoated the truth in the reports he sent me. Michael had been a middling employee, his position secure more through my influence than his merit. Lauren had no idea that the successful young engineer she flaunted to her friends owed nearly everything to the woman she had tried to erase. While they honeymooned in Cancun, spending gift money from Lauren's family, I lay at the hotel spa enjoying a massage for the first time in decades. It struck me then, for years, I had lived entirely for Michael, working, worrying, sacrificing. I had forgotten to live for myself. That afternoon, as I soaked in warmth and silence, I resolved that Michael and Lauren would come to understand exactly what they had lost. Their lesson began the day they returned. The power company cut the electricity to the townhouse. Furious, Michael called me. "Mom, why didn't you pay the utility bill for my house?" "Because it isn't my house," I replied evenly, "and because I am no longer your mother. What are you talking about?" "Of course you're my mom." "No, Michael. Mothers are invited to their sons' weddings." I wasn't. "Therefore, I am not your mother." He was silent, then snapped, "Mom, don't be ridiculous. It was just a wedding." "Exactly," I said. "The most important wedding of your life. And you decided I had no place in it. Now you live with the consequences. But you've always paid my utilities," he shouted. "It's your obligation." My obligation, I repeated, the anger rising hot in my chest. Michael, for 28 years I carried obligations that were never mine to bear. That ends today. I hung up before he could answer and immediately dialed Richard Harrison's number. "Good morning, Mr. Harrison. It's Eleanor." There was a pause, then a weary sigh. "Ah, Eleanor, I suspected I'd be hearing from you after what happened at the wedding. That boy has no idea what you've done for him all these years. That's exactly why I'm calling," I said. "It's time you see who Michael really is as an employee without my influence propping him up." Silence lingered on the line before Harrison spoke again. "If I withdraw my protection, he'll be in serious trouble. His reports are weak, his punctuality appalling, and I've fielded more than one client complaint about his arrogance." "Then handle it as it should be handled," I replied firmly. "I won't intercede again." Meanwhile, Lauren began discovering her own unpleasant surprises. The credit card she had been swiping freely for years, shopping for dresses, spa treatments, perfumes, was declined at her favorite boutique. The saleswoman explained it had been canceled for non-payment. That card had been mine all along. I had opened it, funded it, and paid every bill silently so Michael could keep his girlfriend and later wife content. Michael Lauren's voice pierced the night. Your mother canceled my credit card. Call her right now and make her reactivate it. Minutes later, Michael rang me in a fury. Mom, how could you be so petty? Lauren needs that card. She can get her own, I answered calmly. Or you can provide one if you had the credit to qualify. But you don't because you've never paid a bill in your life. You're a bitter old woman, he spat. That's why no one loves you. His words stung, but I did not flinch. Michael, I said, my voice steady. For 28 years, I swallowed my pride so you could have everything. I exhausted myself, gave up my dreams, and endured humiliation. And when the most important day of your life arrived, you treated me like garbage. Now you will learn what it means to stand on your own 2 feet. I ended the call, powered off my phone, and began planning the next step. The following morning, a black town car carried me to his office. Dressed in a tailored navy suit, pearls at my neck, I walked through the glass doors. Heads turned. Whispered murmurs followed me. Michael stepped out of his cubicle, his face paling. Mom, what are you doing here? I came to talk, I said evenly. Let's speak in private. Inside the conference room, I shut the door behind us. Michael, I said evenly, there's something you need to understand. For years, Richard Harrison has been patient with you, not because of your brilliance, but because he respects me. That patience is finished. Michael's jaw tightened. What are you talking about? His voice cracked at the edges. I'm talking about the fact that Mr. Harrison knows you're late more often than on time. He knows your work is riddled with errors. Clients have filed complaints about you, serious ones. The only thing that's kept you in this office is my influence. Color drained from his face. That's not true, isn't it? I asked. I pulled out my phone and pressed a button. Mr. Harrison, could you step into the conference room? My son has some questions about his performance. 5 minutes later, Richard Harrison entered carrying a folder. His expression was grave. Good morning, Michael, he said, settling into a chair. Your mother asked me to share these. He opened the folder and laid down a series of documents. These are your evaluations from the last 3 years. According to your supervisors, you've been late 43 times. You've submitted projects with glaring errors. And 3 major clients have requested that you be removed from their accounts. Michael's hands trembled as he scanned the pages. But why didn't anyone tell me? Because your mother asked me to be patient, Harrison said. She apologized on your behalf, smoothed things over with clients, and yes, even covered some of the company's losses out of her own pocket. That's a lie, Michael whispered. It's the truth, I said firmly. For years, I cleaned up your messes because I believed one day you would grow into the man I hoped for. But I was wrong. You're already the man you're going to be, one who treats his own mother like refuse. Harrison closed the folder with finality. Michael, as a courtesy to your mother, I'll give you 2 weeks to find other employment. After that, your time here is over. He stood and left, leaving us in silence. Michael turned to me, desperation clouding his eyes. Mom, please. You can't let this happen. Lauren will kill me if I lose this job. You should have thought about that before you cast me out of your wedding, I replied coldly. Now you'll learn what it means to live without my protection. I stood to leave, but he grabbed my arm. Wait, you can't do this. I'm your son. No, I said, pulling free. My son would have defended me when his wife insulted me. My son would have invited me to his wedding. My son would have treated me with respect. You are not my son, Michael. You're a stranger, I told him. Living in a house I paid for, holding a job I secured, married to a woman who despises you as much as she despises me. I walked out of the office, and for the first time in decades, I felt light-free. That evening, Michael dragged himself home, shoulders slumped, face ashen. Lauren was waiting with a glass of wine already in her silk robe, eager to hear the latest office gossip. But when she saw his expression, her smile faded. "What happened to you?" she asked. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Worse," Michael muttered, collapsing onto the couch. "I saw my mother turn into my worst nightmare." Piece by piece, he told her everything the performance reports Richard Harrison's ultimatum, the revelation that I had been covering his failures for years. Lauren's eyes widened horror, curdling into rage. "Are you telling me your mother has been controlling your career all this time?" "It wasn't control," Michael mumbled. "It was protection." "It was manipulation," Lauren snapped. "That woman is toxic. First she humiliated us at our wedding. Now she wants to destroy your career. She's a psychopath." But for the first time, Michael's certainty wavered. He remembered every bill I'd paid, every late night I had worked, every door quietly opened for him. And then he remembered shutting me out of his own wedding like an unwanted guest. "Lauren," he said slowly, Maybe we should apologize." Lauren nearly dropped her glass. "Apologize? Are you insane? She's blackmailing you, Michael. She's guilt-tripping you into crawling back to her." "It's not blackmail," he said softly. "It's a consequence. I told her she didn't fit our image. Now she's showing us that we don't fit in hers." Lauren's face twisted. "I can't believe you're defending her after today." Michael looked at her with tired eyes. "She didn't ruin me today, Lauren." She opened my eyes. "My whole life I thought I was successful on my own. But the truth is, I've been standing on her shoulders the entire time. That conversation was the beginning of the end." Lauren could not accept that her brilliant husband was nothing more than a man propped up by his mother's sacrifices. What would she tell her friends, the same ones she'd bragged to about his bright future, that she had married a fraud? Meanwhile, I enjoyed dinner on a silver tray in my hotel suite, watching the city lights from the window. My phone vibrated endlessly. Calls, messages, desperate attempts to reach me, but I left it silent on the table. When people show you who they really are, you must believe them. The next morning, Samuel arrived with another folder. "Eleanor," he said, "I have the transfers ready. Are you absolutely sure about this?" Samuel asked, his pen poised. In my hands were the documents that would transfer Michael's townhouse back into my name, cancel every automatic payment I had been covering, and withdraw my co-signature from all his loans. I'm completely sure I replied. He wanted independence. Now he'll have it, absolute independence. I signed every page, one after another, feeling decades of weight lift from my shoulders. Samuel gathered the file and promised to process everything that afternoon. Within 24 hours, Michael would discover that the home he lived in was no longer his, that his credit cards had been canceled, and that the rent alone would exceed what his soon-to-be lost job could provide. But my plan did not end with him. Lauren had spent months sneering at me, treating me as if I were an old burden. It was time she understood who she had truly underestimated. That afternoon, I dressed in a sharp charcoal suit, pearls gleaming at my throat, and took a cab to the high-end boutique in Charleston's luxury district where she worked. The shop was all glass walls and marble floors, the kind of place where Lauren pretended to belong by serving women with real wealth. What she didn't know was that I had more wealth than most of her clientele combined. I entered quietly, browsing a rack of silk gowns. Lauren was with another customer, but when her eyes met mine, her expression curdled. "What are you doing here?" she hissed. "I came to shop," I said smoothly. "Isn't that your job to help customers?" The other woman glanced between us, unsettled by Lauren's hostility. "Do you know this lady?" she asked. "She's my mother-in-law," Lauren snapped. "One who doesn't know her place." I smiled. "Oh, I know my place very well. My place is that of a woman with money to spend. Are you going to help me, or should I speak to your manager?" Her face flushed crimson. She couldn't risk a scene. "What do you want?" she muttered through gritted teeth. "I want to see that dress in the window," I said, pointing to the most expensive piece in the store. The $6,000 gown, she asked, eyes wide. "Yes, $6,000. Do you think I can't afford it?" Muttering under her breath, she retrieved the dress and shoved it toward me. "Here it is, but I doubt you can buy it." Without a word, I handed her my platinum card. "Charge it, and while you're at it, Lauren, take a good look at the limit." She swiped the card. Approval flashed instantly, followed by a credit line that made her jaw drop. "How?" She began, her voice faltering. "How could a poor old woman like me have a card like this?" I finished for her, sliding my phone from my bag. "Very easily, Lauren, because I'm not poor. I never was." I opened my banking app and tilted the screen toward her. Lauren's face drained of color as the digits came into view. This can't be real," she whispered. "Do you see that number?" I asked, tapping the balance. "That's just one of my accounts. I also own properties overseas, hold shares in several corporations, and have more wealth than you will ever see working behind this counter." Her hands trembled as she returned the card. Why did you never say anything? Because I wanted Michael to value me for who I am, not for what I have," I replied calmly. "But both of you showed me that to you I'm worth nothing. So now I'll show you exactly what you're about to lose." I picked up my shopping bag with the $6,000 gown and walked toward the door. Just before leaving, I turned back. "Oh, and one more thing. Michael's job ends next week, and the townhouse you live in is no longer yours. I hope you've been saving Lauren. You're going to need it." I left her frozen behind the counter. That evening, Lauren burst through their front door, shaking with fury and disbelief. Michael sat on the couch, a beer in his hand, the TV flickering in front of him, trying to numb the disaster of his day. "Michael," she shrieked, "your mother came to my work today." He muted the television, startled. Why to humiliate me?" she shouted, throwing her purse across the room. She bought a $6,000 dress just to prove she could. She shoved her bank balance in my face. Michael frowned. "6,000, Lauren, my mom was a secretary her whole life. She doesn't have that kind of money." "That's what we thought," Lauren snapped. "But she showed me, Michael, she has millions." Millions. Silence fell. Michael's grip tightened around the bottle. "That's impossible," he muttered. "I know my mother's finances. She's always been middle class." "She lied to you," Lauren hissed, pacing the floor. "She let you think she was poor so she could manipulate you. She's sick, Michael. She's dangerous." But Michael wasn't so sure anymore. Memories surfaced, moments he had never questioned. The surgery bill in college she had somehow paid in full. The down payment for his first car that appeared overnight. The mortgage that never seemed to strain him. Pieces of the puzzle were beginning to shift. When he needed a suit for graduation, I had given it to him without hesitation. Now, years later, he finally began to piece it together. Lauren, Michael said slowly, "I don't think my mother ever lied to us about her money. We simply never asked." Lauren stared at him, incredulous. "Never asked, Michael. You lived with that woman your whole life." "Exactly," he replied. "I lived with her, but I never really knew her. I never asked about her family, her past, her finances. I just assumed she existed to serve me." The realization hung heavy in the air. Lauren suddenly saw that she had married a man who didn't truly know his own mother, and Michael realized that he had scorned the very woman who had quietly carried him for decades. The next day, he swallowed his pride and went to the hotel where I was staying. He approached the front desk, nervous. "I'm looking for Eleanor," he said. The concierge's eyes swept over him with cool disdain. "Are you related to the lady?" "I'm her son," Michael answered, trying to steady his voice. "Ah," the concierge replied with a cold smile. "The son who didn't invite her to his wedding. The lady mentioned you." Michael flushed crimson. "Please, can I speak with her? I'm afraid not. She left instructions that she will not receive visits from family, but if you'd like, I can deliver a message." Defeated, Michael scribbled a note. "I'm sorry. Please give me a chance to talk." The concierge disappeared upstairs. Minutes later, he returned holding the same folded paper. "The lady says you already had your chance at the door of the wedding venue. You wasted it. There won't be a second." Michael left the hotel with his shoulders heavy. feeling more lost than he ever had. Meanwhile, in my suite, I was on the phone with Richard Harrison. "How has Michael been at work?" I asked. Richard sighed. "Eleanor, the boy, is unraveling. He's late every day, his reports are sloppy, and yesterday a client complained because he broke down crying during a presentation." "Crying?" I asked, startled. "Yes." They pressed him on project costs, and he started weeping, saying he didn't know anything anymore, that his entire life had been a lie. For a fleeting moment, my heart ached. He was still the boy who once ran into my arms after scraping his knee. But then I remembered his cold eyes at the wedding, the contempt in his voice. The ache hardened into resolve. "Mr. Harrison," I said firmly, "stick to your decision. Michael needs to learn actions have consequences." Michael thought the worst was behind him, but he had no idea what I was about to do next. If you don't want to miss how this story turns, make sure you subscribe now and join me in the next chapter. That same week, Michael and Lauren received the legal notice about the townhouse. A courier arrived at their door with papers confirming that the property had been fully transferred back into my name. They had 30 days to vacate or start paying a rent of $3,000 a month. Lauren skimmed the documents and went pale before her voice rose into a shriek. "This is impossible. This house is ours. We have the deed." "Apparently not," Michael muttered, his voice flat and hollow. "Apparently my mother's been paying for this house for years, and I never even knew." Lauren turned on him like a storm. "You're pathetic. How could you not know your own mother owned this house? I married a failure." Her rage escalated into hysteria, screaming, smashing plates, and shoving furniture until the neighbors, alarmed, called the police. Officers arrived to find Lauren throwing glassware while Michael cowered in the corner, tears streaking his face. "Ma'am," one officer said firmly, "you need to calm down or we'll have to arrest you for disturbing the peace." "You can't arrest me," Lauren screeched. "This is my house." The officer glanced at the paperwork. "According to these documents, this house belongs to a woman named Eleanor." "Are you Eleanor? She's my mother-in-law," Lauren spat. "Then this isn't your house," the officer concluded. "You'll need to resolve this matter civilly or we'll be forced to intervene again." After the police left, the couple sat in the wreckage, broken plates on the floor cushions, overturned the air thick with bitterness. "What are we going to do?" Lauren whispered, her voice shaking. "I don't know," Michael admitted. "I don't have a job. I don't have a house. I don't have savings. I always thought my mother would be there to rescue me." "I hate that woman," Lauren screamed, pounding her fists into the couch. "I hate her. She ruined our lives." Michael looked down, his voice trembling. "No, we ruined our lives when we decided she didn't deserve our respect." For the first time, he admitted they had been wrong, but Lauren wasn't ready to accept that. In her mind, I was the villain who had destroyed her marriage. What she didn't realize was that her marriage had never been real. It was an illusion propped up by my silent sacrifices. That night, Lauren made her move. If she couldn't force Michael to win back his mother, she would make me pay publicly. She opened her phone and began to type. "My psycho mother-in-law kicked us out of our house after ruining our wedding. For years, she pretended to be poor to manipulate my husband. But in reality, she's a millionaire." She hit post. "Now that we're married," Lauren typed furiously, "she's decided to destroy our lives out of jealousy. My husband lost his job because of her, and now we have nowhere to live. This sick woman can't accept that her son doesn't need her anymore." She attached photos herself in tears, the townhouse trashed, after her tantrum, broken dishes, and overturned furniture. Within hours, the post spread like wildfire. Thousands of strangers shared it. The comments poured in. "What a cruel mother-in-law. She should be ashamed for ruining her own son's happiness. Jealous, bitter old woman." Lauren scrolled through them with satisfaction, reveling in the sympathy of strangers who saw her as a beautiful, wronged young bride against a vindictive older woman. She believed she had won, that I had been cast as the villain. But she made one fatal mistake. In her hunger for attention, she tagged me by name. She thought I would hide in shame. Instead, it meant people who actually knew me, friends, colleagues, former neighbors, saw the post. The first message came from a retired co-worker, Eleanor. "Have you seen what your daughter-in-law is saying about you online? It's all lies." Curiosity got the better of me. I opened social media for the first time in weeks and read the post. Every sentence inverted the truth. Every accusation twisted the facts. I scrolled through hundreds of strangers calling me toxic, manipulative, abusive. The words should have stung, but they didn't. After everything Michael and Lauren had already done to me, the judgments of strangers felt hollow. What bothered me wasn't the insults. It was that Lauren had achieved exactly what she wanted. She had stolen my story and twisted it into hers. She had taken my pain, my choices, my boundaries, and turned them into a grotesque tale where she was the victim and I was the monster. Enough. That night, I sat at the desk in my hotel suite, opened a fresh page, and began to write. Not with anger, not with spite, but with calm, unshakable truth. "My name is Eleanor," I typed, "and I am the so-called psycho mother-in-law you've been hearing about. I want to tell you the truth. I wrote about raising Michael from the day he was born, about decades of sacrifice, 3 jobs at a time, endless nights without sleep, the dreams I buried so he could chase his. I explained in my post how I had been quietly covering Michael's expenses for years, his mortgage, his credit cards, even smoothing over mistakes at his job and paying his medical bills. I described Lauren's constant humiliations, Michael's growing contempt, and finally the cruelty of being erased from his wedding guest list. I did not evict them, I wrote. I asked them to pay rent for a house that I bought and maintained. I did not make Michael lose his job. I simply stopped covering up for his poor performance. And I did not pretend to be poor to manipulate them. I kept my finances private because I wanted them to value me for who I am, not for what I own. But the part that struck deepest was when I shared the recordings. Over the past months, I had begun recording conversations with Lauren and Michael, not out of malice, but as protection. When someone insists you said things you never said, recordings become your only defense. I uploaded clips of Lauren sneering, calling me a burden, of Michael saying I didn't fit the image they wanted to project, of phone calls where Lauren screamed that I ruined their lives. The reaction was instant and electric. "Oh my God, that daughter-in-law is vile," one comment read. "How could a son talk to his mother like that?" another asked. "This woman is a saint for enduring this treatment," someone else added. But I didn't stop there. In the days that followed, I posted receipts, literal ones, grocery bills, tuition invoices, credit card payments, screenshots of bank transfers, copies of loan agreements where my name was the guarantor, even text messages where Lauren belittled me. Each piece of evidence shifted the narrative further. Posts began circulating with captions like, "This is what happens when you don't value your mother," and a powerful reminder that love is not the same as allowing disrespect. Then came the post that changed everything. 28 years ago, I wrote I had a young son who depended on me completely. He was frightened, fragile, and needed love. I gave him that love unconditionally for decades. But unconditional love does not mean surrendering your dignity. Sometimes the greatest lesson we can teach is that actions have consequences. That message went viral on its own. Mothers around the world echoed my words. Adult children began reflecting on how they treated their parents. The conversation had shifted entirely away from Lauren's lies and toward the truth I had carried all along. Lauren watched her carefully crafted narrative collapse in real time. The comments on her viral post shifted from sympathy to outrage. "How could you lie about a woman who sacrificed everything for you?" one user wrote. "You should be ashamed," another added. "This is desperate." Panicked Lauren decided to launch a live stream to defend herself. It would prove to be her worst mistake. She began with glassy eyes and a trembling voice. "Hello, everyone. I know many of you have seen my mother-in-law's posts and I want to clear things up. That woman is lying about everything. At first, barely 50 people tuned in, but as the link spread, hundreds more began to join. Eleanor is not the victim, she claims, Lauren said, voice tightening. She is manipulative, controlling, and has ruined our marriage because she can't accept that Michael doesn't need her anymore. The comments began to scroll rapidly, but they weren't in her favor. "Where's your proof?" someone asked. Her recordings sounded pretty clear. Another wrote, "Why don't you show receipts the way she did?" Lauren's face flushed as her voice grew louder. She manipulated those recordings. She edited them to make me look bad. I was watching from my hotel suite, calm as ever. And at that moment, I decided it was time. I opened my own live stream and typed into Lauren's comments. "Hello, Lauren, this is Eleanor. Would you mind if I join the conversation?" The chat exploded instantly. "She's here. Yes, let's hear both sides. This is going to be good." Lauren paled as she read my message. "No," she stammered. "I'm not giving her a platform to spread more lies." The audience turned on her immediately. "Coward, if you're telling the truth, why are you afraid?" Let her speak under pressure. Lauren finally gave in. "Fine," she snapped. "Let her join. Then everyone will see what kind of person she really is." I accepted the invitation. The screen split, showing us side by side. The contrast was glaring. I appeared composed in a tailored suit, seated in my quiet hotel suite. Lauren looked disheveled. Her hair tangled her living room behind her in chaos. "Hello, Lauren," I said with serene composure. "Thank you for letting me join. I'd like to clear a few things up." "Go ahead," she spat her hostility naked. "Lie all you want." "People already know the truth about you," Lauren sneered. "The truth," I replied evenly, "is that you've been insulting me for months, and I have the recordings to prove it. Would you like me to play them here? Live for everyone watching." Lauren's face turned crimson. "Those recordings are illegal." "No," I said calmly. "In this state, it is perfectly legal to record conversations when you are part of them, especially when you are being harassed or threatened." The comments section lit up in seconds. "Play them. We want to hear the truth. Let the receipts speak." So I pressed play. Lauren's voice filled the live stream, harsh, cutting, dripping with contempt. "You're a burden. You have no dignity. You ruined our wedding." The words rang sharp, undeniable. When the audio ended, Lauren's eyes brimmed with tears. That was out of context," she stammered. Out of context, I asked, still calm. "Tell me, in what context is it acceptable to tell a 68-year-old woman she is a burden and has no dignity? You provoked us," Lauren shouted. "You were always meddling in our marriage." I tilted my head. "Can you give me one specific example of how I meddled in your marriage?" Lauren opened her mouth, then shut it again. No answer came. "The only times I involved myself," I continued, "were when Michael asked me for help, or when you invited me to dinner. I never showed up unannounced. I never gave unsolicited advice. I never criticized your relationship. My only mistake was existing." The comments scrolled faster than the eye could follow. "This lady is pure dignity. Lauren is a liar. How could they treat their mother like that? Viewership soared past 10,000. You blackmailed us." Lauren cried desperately. "You took away our house and Michael's job to force us to apologize." I shook my head. "No, Lauren. I didn't take anything from you. I simply stopped paying for you. The townhouse was mine from the beginning. Michael's job existed because of my influence. The credit cards you lived on, those were mine. You never had anything of your own." I reached beside me and held documents up to the camera deeds, loan agreements, bank statements. "Here is the truth," I said. The comments erupted. "These are the original deeds to the townhouse," I said, holding them up to the camera. "As you can see, the property has always been in my name. These are the bank statements proving that I've been paying the mortgage for the last 5 years. And these," I added, displaying a thick stack of papers, "are the receipts for every credit card bill I covered for Michael." Lauren had no more arguments. Her voice cracked as she whispered, "But were family. Family, I repeated. Families invite each other to weddings, Lauren. Families treat each other with respect. You showed me that to you, I wasn't family. I was an unpaid employee. Then I turned my eyes directly to the camera because I knew Michael was watching. Michael, I said firmly, for 28 years, I was your mother. I changed your diapers when you were a baby. I held your hand at the doctor's office when you were sick. I worked extra shifts to pay your tuition. I defended you when you made mistakes, but when the time came for you to defend me, you chose instead to humiliate me. That choice has consequences. Lauren tried to speak, but I lifted my hand. I'm not finished. You, Lauren, chose to see me as a threat instead of an ally. You chose insults instead of respect, lies on social media instead of accountability. Now you will live with the consequences of those choices. The comment section was flooding with support. What a strong woman. Lauren should be ashamed. Poetic justice. The live viewer count surged past 15,000. Do you know what the saddest part of all of this is? I asked softly. That I truly wanted to love you. When Michael told me he had a girlfriend, I was thrilled. I thought I was finally going to have a daughter. I cooked special dinners for you. I bought you gifts. I tried to bring you into our family traditions. But you chose to see me as your enemy from the very beginning. Lauren's tears were streaming now. I didn't know. Of course you knew, I replied. You knew exactly what you were doing, and now so does everyone else. I ended the broadcast, leaving Lauren sobbing on screen. Within minutes, clips of the confrontation spread like wildfire. Headlines blared across social media. Mother-in-law destroys lying daughter-in-law with facts and the most elegant revenge in history. The fallout was immediate. The boutique where Lauren worked terminated her contract the very next day. We can't have employees who generate this kind of controversy, Lauren's manager told her bluntly. Our clientele are elegant women, and now they see you as a contentious figure. It's bad for business. Lauren tried to protest, insisting it was all a misunderstanding, but the damage was irreversible. The video of her insulting me had been viewed by millions, many of them, the very wealthy clients her boutique relied on. By the end of the day, she was out of a job. Michael fared no better. He arrived at the office only to find a termination letter waiting on his desk. Richard Harrison had given him a 2-week grace period, but after the public spectacle, even loyalty to me couldn't protect him anymore. Michael Harrison said gravely when they met in his office after last night, several clients have called demanding that you be removed from their accounts. They won't work with someone who treats his own mother like that. I'm sorry, but your employment ends today. But social media wasn't finished with them. Users began digging into their past, uncovering the truth behind their lies. Old posts resurfaced, Lauren bragging about the luxury gifts Michael supposedly bought her gifts, the world now knew had been funded by me. Others exposed how the couple had been living far beyond their means, propped up entirely by my silent support. The hashtag #DoruTeam, Eleanor, began trending globally. Women of every age shared their own experiences of ungrateful children, disrespectful in-laws, and the pain of being cast aside after years of sacrifice. My story had struck a chord across generations. Meanwhile, I sat in my hotel suite, watching it all unfold with a mix of satisfaction and sorrow. I had defended myself. I had cleared my name. But I had also lost my son. The fracture between Michael and me felt permanent, an open wound that might never heal. That afternoon, Samuel arrived with a stack of legal documents. Eleanor, he said, Michael and Lauren have been trying to contact me. They want to negotiate what I asked. They're asking you to return the townhouse and drop the defamation claims. In exchange, they'll apologize publicly and promise to stay out of your life forever. I let out a bitter laugh. Now they want to negotiate after calling me a psychopath and a liar in front of millions. They're desperate. Samuel explained. No jobs, no money, no home. Lauren's receiving threats online, and Michael, he's having panic attacks. Panic attacks. I repeated, a pang of concern flickering despite everything. Yes, Samuel confirmed. He can't leave the house without being recognized. Yesterday, an elderly woman slapped him in a supermarket and shouted that he was a disgrace as a son. For a brief moment, I felt something almost like compassion. After all, Michael was still the boy I had once cradled through his nightmares, the toddler whose first steps I had celebrated, the young man I had cheered for at graduations. But then I remembered the disgust on his face as he told me I wasn't welcome at his own wedding, and the flicker of compassion died. Consequences, I murmured to myself. They chose this path. What do you want me to tell them? Samuel asked quietly. Tell them the house is mine and will remain mine. If they want to stay, they can pay the full rent, $3,000 a month. If they can't afford it, they'll have to leave. And the defamation suits, Samuel pressed. They go forward, I replied firmly, until I receive a full public apology and compensation for the damage to my reputation. Samuel nodded, gathered the documents, and left me alone with my thoughts. The truth was, I didn't need the rent money or the settlement. I had more than enough to last 10 lifetimes. But this wasn't about money. This was about teaching Michael and Lauren that actions have a cost that you cannot treat people, like refuse, and expect no consequences. That night, my hotel phone rang incessantly, until, weary of the sound, I finally answered. Mom Michael's voice cracked on the other end. Please, we have to talk. We already did, I said flatly. At the wedding. You told me I didn't fit your image. Mom, please, he begged. I was confused. Lauren filled my head with things. Michael, I cut him off. Lauren didn't put a gun to your head. She didn't force you to erase me from your life. Those were your choices. Your contempt, your silence. He hesitated, then blurted out, but I didn't know you had money. If I'd known, I never would have treated you that way. The words pierced deeper than any insult. Do you hear yourself? I asked softly. You're saying the only reason you would respect me is because of my money. What about treating me well because I'm your mother? What about respect for the woman who sacrificed her life for you? Silence stretched across the line. Then weakly he whispered, I didn't mean that. Yes, you did, I replied. And that is why this relationship is over. Because to you, my worth was always measured by what I could give, not by who I am. What do I have to do to make you forgive me? He asked through sobs. Nothing, I said sadly. Forgiveness is for mistakes, not for when someone shows you their true character. And you showed me who you really are. I hung up the phone, and for the first time since this ordeal began, I let myself cry. Not for the loss of money or the house or status, but for the loss of the son I thought I had raised, one who in truth had never really existed. 6 months later, my life looked nothing like the one I had left behind. I had settled into a beautiful apartment overlooking Lake Geneva, close to the properties I had inherited from my father. Europe embraced me with quiet anonymity. Here no one recognized me from a viral video or whispered about family scandals. I could walk through cobbled streets, sit in cafes, or browse bookstores as just another older woman starting over at 68. Samuel remained in Charleston managing my legal affairs from afar. Back in South Carolina, Michael and Lauren had lost the townhouse, unable to meet the $3,000 rent. They moved into a cramped unit in a modest neighborhood, a jarring fall from the life of fake luxury they had so proudly flaunted. Michael eventually found work as a technician in a small firm, earning a fraction of his old salary. Lauren answered phones in a call center, her name blacklisted by boutiques after her public outbursts. The defamation lawsuit concluded decisively in my favor. The judge ordered Lauren to pay damages and issue a formal apology. The apology, brief and mechanical, was enough to satisfy the law, if not my heart. I apologized to Eleanor for the false statements I made on social media. I acknowledge my claims were incorrect and harmful. I regret my actions. Every cent of the compensation was donated to organizations supporting single mothers and adoptive families. I had no use for their money, but the gesture ensured they understood that lying carried a price. In those months, thousands of messages reached me from women across the world. mothers who had found the strength to set boundaries, mothers-in-law emboldened to demand respect, older women who realized it wasn't selfish to live for themselves. One letter struck me deeply. Maria from Colombia wrote, "Your story saved my life. For 15 years, I endured my son and daughter-in-law's contempt, believing it was a mother's duty. After hearing your story, I realized love does not mean abuse. Thank you for teaching me mothers deserve respect, too." Her words inspired me to begin writing a book. Not for vengeance, not for profit, but to give voice to countless silenced women. I titled it, "I Retired from Motherhood," a dedication to those who sacrificed identity for love and needed reminding that dignity is non-negotiable. Michael had tried to contact me several times over those months. Letters forwarded through Samuel messages passed along by old acquaintances. He had even flown to Geneva once, hoping to find me in the streets I walked daily. But I remained steadfast. That door was closed forever. The last letter I received from him was the most difficult to read. "Mom," he wrote, "I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need you to know that I realize what I did. Lauren and I divorced. She never recovered from the humiliation and blamed me for everything. Now I'm alone and I understand what I lost. I didn't just lose a mother. I lost the only person who ever loved me without condition. I know it's too late, but I regret every cruel word, every look of contempt, and above all, casting you aside on the most important day of my life. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I only want you to know you were the best mother anyone could have, and I was too blind to see it." I read the letter several times, my heart torn between sadness and relief. Sadness because Michael had finally recognized the enormity of what he had thrown away. Relief because his words affirmed what I had always known: I had not been cruel, only protective of my dignity. Boundaries were not vengeance. They were survival. In Geneva, my life had blossomed into something I had not felt in decades' peace. My mornings began with books by the lake. Afternoons were filled with painting classes I had always longed to take. I traveled, I laughed with new friends who valued me for myself, not for what I could provide. I volunteered with an organization helping older women abandoned by their families. My story gave them courage proof that life could begin again after rejection. On one quiet walk through the Parc des Bastions, I reflected on my journey from giving birth to a frightened boy and raising him alone to retiring from motherhood at 68. I did not regret giving Michael love, education, and opportunity, but I also did not regret walking away when he became an adult who met love with contempt. I had learned the truth: unconditional love does not equal unconditional abuse. One evening, Samuel sent me a message. "Eleanor, Michael says he's in therapy and understands what he did. He asks if reconciliation is possible." I smiled sadly as I typed my reply. "Tell him I'm glad he is working on himself, but some doors once closed remain closed. I wish him peace in his new life." As the sun dipped behind the Alps, I whispered my mantra: I don't regret giving birth to him. I only regret not learning sooner that kindness should never demand self-destruction. The best revenge I discovered was never bitterness. It was freedom. I've shared my truth, not to seek pity, but to show that even at 68, it is never too late to choose dignity. If my story resonated with you, please support me by subscribing, sharing your thoughts, and letting others hear this journey. Every voice matters, and your encouragement helps me continue. Together, we can build a space where women know their worth and no longer apologize for protecting their hearts.